We are going to see about the different kinds of buffer. There are two kinds of buffer. One is the unbounded buffer and next we are going to see about the bounded buffer. How do they differ from each other is, in this unbounded buffer, it places no practical limit on the size of the buffer. The consumer may have to wait for new items, but the producer can always produce new items. So in this unbounded buffer, there is no limit on this buffer. It's like a buffer with unlimited size. That means if it has unlimited size, the producer can keep on producing items. It does not have to stop or wait. As long as it can produce, the producer can keep on producing items because the buffer will not become full. It is an unbounded buffer. It has no limit on the size. So the consumer may have to wait for new items. The consumer may have to wait for the new items only when the buffer is completely empty, that is when the producer has not yet produced anything, or if the consumer has consumed everything and the producer has not produced any new items. So the consumer will have to wait only when the buffer is empty, but in case of the producer can keep on producing the items because there is no limit on the size of the buffer. So that is what we mean by unbounded buffer. Now let's see what is bounded buffer. So in this bounded buffer, it is just opposite of unbounded buffer. It assumes a fixed buffer size. In this case, the consumer must wait if the buffer is empty and the producer must wait if the buffer is full. So unlike the unbounded buffer, this bounded buffer, it has a size limit. It has a fixed buffer size, so it does not have unlimited space. There is a limited fixed buffer size, and in this what happens, the consumer will have to wait if the buffer is empty. So similarly, like the unbounded buffer, even in the bounded buffer, the consumer will have to wait if the buffer is empty, if the buffer does not contain any items, and the producer must wait if the buffer is full. So since there is a limit in the size or a fixed size in this buffer, the producer will also have to wait if the buffer is full. So in unbounded buffer, the producer never had to wait because it can keep on producing as there is no limit on the size. But in bounded buffer, since there is a limit in the size, the producer will have to wait if the buffer is full. It will have to wait for the consumer to consume some of the items and make more space so that it can produce newer items. So that it is in bounded buffer. So those are the two kinds of buffers that we have in the producer-consumer problem. So remember that this buffer resides in the region of shared memory where both producer and consumer can access, and we are discussing all this because this is an example of the shared memory systems.